Okay, let's dive into this. Moving abroad is so often romanticized, right? You picture yourself just wandering these historic streets, soaking in a brand new culture, and effortlessly starting this exciting new chapter. But what actually happens when the reality of endless paperwork, insane housing markets, and strict legal requirements hits you like a literal freight train? Well, in today's Explainer, we're unpacking a first-hand account of a couple who arrived in Germany back in March of 2019. We're going to map out their exact journey, look at the very real hurdles they faced, and most importantly, extract the survival tactics that will absolutely save your sanity if you're planning a similar move. Let's get right into it.
So, a bit of background. Before Germany, the author actually lived in Ireland, and they had a pretty smooth time there as the spouse of an EU citizen. Because of that, they kind of assumed Germany would be a breeze too. The dream was super simple. Arrive, pop over to immigration, get a residence permit, start working in English, and, gradually pick up German. But man, the reality was just an immediate collision with Germany's notoriously complex bureaucracy. Take housing, for example. In Ireland, apartments often come fully furnished. But in Germany, as they very quickly found out, you might walk into a rental and find it completely empty. And I mean literally empty, like not even a kitchen sink. Assuming one EU country operates exactly like another, yeah, that was definitely their first big mistake.
Which brings us to Section 1, Expectation versus Reality, arriving in Berlin. So the crucial point is why they chose Berlin. As English speakers, they figured a diverse international hub would be the absolute easiest place to blend in and just find their footing, right? But instead of a welcome mat, they ran face first into a massive administrative wall. Enter the ultimate antagonist of our story, the Anmeldung. Basically, this is the mandatory registration of your residential address at the local German office. Now, it's no secret that Germany absolutely loves physical paperwork and official stamps. And without this specific stamped piece of paper, you essentially do not exist in the German system. You absolutely need it. You need it to open a local bank account, you need it to get a job, and ironically enough, you often need it just to sign a permanent rental contract. And that leads right into Section 2, the housing catch-22. No job, no home. And this brilliantly illustrates the nightmare they found themselves in. With the Anmeldung kind of looming over their heads, the couple naturally went into panic mode and started frantically searching for housing. Because remember, to get the registration, you need a place to live. To make things worse, they didn't actually have jobs yet, and they quickly discovered that being unemployed is a massive, massive red flag for German landlords. This triggers an absolutely maddening, totally impossible bureaucratic loop. It's like a trap. Check this out. You need an apartment to register your address, but landlords want to see a job and a local bank account before they even consider giving you an apartment. Okay, fine, so you go to get a job and a bank account. But wait, employers and banks require you to be registered first. The couple was entirely stuck in this perfect, unbreakable circle of administrative gridlock. Let's look at the timeline of their really stressful first week. They initially booked an Airbnb for just 4 days, optimistically thinking, hey, that'll be enough time. But by day 4, reality really set in, and they had to extend it. Throughout this whole week, they're just desperately scouring platforms like Housing Anywhere, and everything they find is either totally unaffordable or already gone. Finally, they get to visit a tiny studio apartment in a, let's say, less than ideal area. It's literally their only chance. But then the agent drops the bomb. They demand a huge pile of documents, 3 whole months' rent up front as a deposit, plus a bank account in their names with at least 3,000 euros just to prove financial stability. I mean, they scraped absolutely everything together to meet these absurd requirements for a desperate studio, followed every single rule, and the apartment still went to someone else. Completely exhausted, they eventually turned to a platform called Spotahome, just looking for furnished apartments that they could book entirely online. So they finally find a place on there that fits their budget, and they connect with the landlord. But right away, communication is a huge struggle. The landlord's English is super limited, and when the couple politely asks for an English copy of the contract, he just outright refuses, multiple times. The author notes that the guy seemed confused, really evasive, and honestly just highly unprofessional. The conversation got pretty heated until the landlord delivered this totally chilling line. "You will pay for that." I mean, just imagine being in a foreign country, completely unmoored, sleeping in a temporary shared room, and having a prospective landlord subtly threaten you. The couple went through sleepless nights, waking up in the dark, just totally consumed by anxiety. But thankfully, we get a little sigh of relief here. Because the platform held the deposit on a credit card, the couple immediately reached out to Spotahome support. And they were great. The support team listened to their case, investigated the landlord's weird behavior, and told the couple to stop any and all communication outside of the platform immediately. And most importantly, they guaranteed a full refund of the couple's money. The absolutely crucial takeaway for you here: never, ever communicate or pay outside of official verified platforms. It was a really narrow escape, but honestly, the whole ordeal completely broke their resolve to stay in Berlin. They realized they needed to completely rethink their entire approach.
Moving on to Section 3, Visas and Finding Work, the Expat Survival Kit. Let's actually pause their personal story right here at its absolute lowest point and open up the Expat Survival Toolkit. If you are planning a move like this, how do you avoid the nightmare this couple just went through? Well, the absolute best way to bypass that whole housing catch-22 is to secure a job before you ever even step foot in the country. Now, pulling directly from the German government's official Make It in Germany portal, your specific visa pathway depends entirely on your qualifications. It is definitely not a one-size-fits-all thing. First, you've got the EU Blue Card. This is basically your golden ticket if you're a highly skilled worker from outside the EU who already has a job offer. It's fantastic because it offers way faster processing times and makes bringing your family over so much easier. On the other hand, the work visa for skilled professionals is strictly for individuals who have recognized qualifications and want to work directly in their specific field of expertise. Knowing exactly which of these applies to you will honestly change the entire dynamic of your relocation.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the tools you can use to bypass that whole panic of arriving unemployed. You gotta leverage these trusted portals to secure work fast. First up is LinkedIn. It is absolutely phenomenal for international networking. Honestly, a lot of companies explicitly post roles there that are open to both EU and non-EU applicants. Second is Indeed, which is great because it acts as a global search engine, and you can actually filter jobs specifically by visa or work permit requirements. Super handy. And third is Stepstone, which is one of Europe's massive job boards, and it features highly specific, localized pages just for Germany. I cannot stress this enough. Using these tools to secure a contract beforehand completely short-circuits the panic of arriving empty-handed.
All right, let's jump to Section 4, Finding a Foothold, the pivot to Nuremberg.
Okay, getting back to our couple. They still didn't have jobs, and they were desperately fleeing the stress of Berlin. But before making their next huge move, they actually took a short, much-needed break to attend a family member's baptism outside of Germany. And this brief pause really allowed them to decompress. When they were finally ready to try again, they tapped into some family connections down in Bavaria and decided to pivot away from the capital entirely. Their new target? The city of Nuremberg. And their journey there involved a really smart tactical strategy. Literally the moment they started traveling, they bought a local German SIM card. Guys, this was an absolute game changer. Having constant internet access meant they could navigate and do super agile housing research while actually on the road. And that connectivity paid off instantly. They managed to score an available double room for exactly 1 month from a local girl who was going on holiday. Just to play it extra safe, the couple also booked a separate Airbnb for 3 days so they could explore Nuremberg and really vet the neighborhood before officially moving in.
When they finally arrived in Nuremberg, they did something they genuinely hadn't done in over a week. They sat down, drank a coffee, and just relaxed. They met the girl, paid the rent, got the keys. And for the very first time since landing in the country, they secured the most valuable resource of all: time. Just 1 month, 1 room. Sure, it wasn't permanent stability. They still didn't have jobs, right? They still didn't have that dreaded Anmeldung. They definitely didn't fully understand the whole German system yet. But they finally had a small, safe window to just breathe and figure everything out.
Which leaves us with a really crucial cliffhanger. Okay, so you survived the initial shock. You've dodged the shady landlords. You finally have a temporary room and a brief moment of peace. But how do you actually become official? Because finding a bed is really only step 1. How exactly would you navigate the next step of this insane bureaucratic maze?